Welcome to IVF This, episode 170, IVF and You. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. After 10 years of primary and secondary infertility due to both male and female factor infertility, I am now the mother to 3 beautiful miracles. I am married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you how to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you're all doing so well. I can't believe we're at 170, 5 more to go for a major kind of benchmark in podcasting. It's kind of crazy. Next month, so it's October now, so in November, IVF This will officially be 4 years old, and I just cannot fathom that reality. It is incredible, so thank you for listening today. Thank you for listening yesterday. Thank you for listening for the past 4 years. I truly am grateful for each and every one of you. It is officially October. I love October. It has always been my favorite month. You can call me basic if you want. I don't really live in an area of the country of the US that gets to experience like different seasons. In Austin, October is kind of just basically less hot, marginally less hot than September. We're definitely a few months away from a genuine cool down, but it does not stop me from wearing like snuggly clothes indoors where the air conditioning is blowing, or scrolling Pinterest for like autumn leaves changing and things like that. But I get to decide how I feel about fall, even when I do not live in a fall-ish area, and I despise pumpkin spice anything. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Not pumpkin spice, although I could do a long rant on how trash that particular flavor of coffee is. No. We're here to talk about you. So I will stay on topic because this podcast is about you and it is for you. So it'll be a little bit shorter than normal, but it comes up so much in my coaching that I wanted to do a specific episode on it because I think it's very important. Here's what it is. So often IVFers will come to me for coaching and they want to attribute their happiness, their satisfaction, their fulfillment, their confidence, their joy, anything good that they have felt about themselves and their life before infertility or IVF, or trying to convince themselves that they will get to experience those feelings or those emotions once they have a baby. And all I have to say to that is I recognize it very clearly because I did it too. But it's not entirely true. The way that a lot of this shows up is I used to be so happy when or before, or I will get to be so happy or fulfilled or satisfied or grounded or calm or joyful when, right? Like one is living in a nostalgia for how I used to feel so amazing, and the other is living in a future of where I will get to feel amazing then. I get the understanding that, you know, we feel like life is going to get so much better when, right? Whatever that when is, right? When I get this promotion, when I buy a new house, when I have my baby or have my family. And I certainly am not trying to invalidate or diminish people's experiences because that was certainly, I always had like a goalpost for, you know, once I get through this, then I'm going to get to feel better. Once I get through this, then I'm going to get to be happy and smile or whatever that is, right? I've literally been there. And I also don't want you to believe that you are less powerful than you are. If you always believe that the reason that you are happy or you were happy or that you will get to be happy in the future, then you're missing out on what you get to create right now and in the future. You're missing out on what you've actually created in the past. You're missing out on what is really true, is that it was always you. It was always what was going on inside of your head that created whatever insanely positive, joyful experiences that you have had in the past. And so, although it can seem like this future baby or your future family, and I'm sure it will be wonderful, and that your life was wonderful in the past before you got hit with this massive wall of infertility and IVF. And I'm sure that you will love your life with them. And in the most loving way possible, I want to offer you that it isn't just having a baby, and it isn't just our life before infertility and IVF. It was always you. Now, I can joke about this because from the moment I decided to start trying to conceive, it was like some sort of switch flipped in my brain. Like I went from thinking about other things to all of a sudden that was all I could think about. And it wasn't necessarily immediate, but it happened at a pretty rapid clip from that moment that we decided, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we had a baby? Like, let's start trying for a baby. The first couple of months were okay. I thought about other things. But really, once I crossed like the 2 or 3 month threshold, I started to get more and more focused on it. I started thinking about it more and more. It started occupying a lot of my thoughts and the things that I talk about. I got very tunnel visioned pretty quickly within the process. There's a whole 18 months that I really could have enjoyed my life a little bit more. There were like races, I like to run. There were races, there were trips, there were other things that I could have signed up for, but didn't, because I always had this like lingering thought of, well, I might be pregnant by then and I just don't know how I'm going to feel, right? That was always like this carrot dangling in front of me in the future, because I truly believed that once I had that, it would be like the pinnacle of my happiness. So I almost created a world, an environment where nothing could impede that, because I couldn't possibly conceptualize of enjoying myself or my life until that happened, right? And maybe that's not your experience. Maybe you feel very fulfilled, very satisfied, even with IVF, like you feel very satisfied in other parts of your life and IVF is just this one part. Or maybe like me, it feels so consuming, right? I always tell you on this podcast, I want you to take what works for you and leave what doesn't. I'm never going to be offended if you don't take everything that I have to say completely to heart and utilize everything I offer. That's never how I run. But if you're like me and it is so consuming to you, I just want to remind you that you create the experiences the best that you can with the information and the environment that you have. You curate the experience that you have in your mind, right? So you've heard me probably say you can only control 3 things. You can only control how you think, how you feel, and what you do. And so when we get to a place where we are deferring our own happiness, our own satisfaction, our own fulfillment for something in the future, we are cutting out the potential for us to experience all of those emotions that we like nostalgically remember our lives being, and we're cutting off our potential to feel those emotions in the future. That's a little bit, especially like the future focus. There's a normal human cognitive experience, I guess is the best way to describe it, called affective forecasting error, which it is absolutely one of those obnoxious sounding psychology, sociology concepts that basically state that we tend to overestimate the emotional impact of a future event, whether that is in intensity, like we assume it's going to be more intense than it actually ends up being, or the duration, like I'm always going to feel this way. And very rarely are we actually accurate. So when we tell ourselves that our life is going to be so amazing once we get pregnant or once we have our family or whatever, we are kind of setting ourselves up for failure, setting ourselves up for disappointment, right? Because it's not just that we're trying to forecast how we're going to feel in the future. We're also kind of telling ourselves that that's the only way we should be feeling in the future, right? So if we're going into, let's say, an IVF transfer, and we say, if this works, I'm going to get to feel so amazing. I'm going to get to feel calm, and I'm going to feel grounded and finally like at peace, that I won't be in this like bucket of yuck of that IVF is. And then we get there, and let's say we get what we want and the transfer is successful. To think that you're only going to feel amazing is like setting yourself up for a massive disappointment, because physically you might not feel amazing, right? Physically, pregnancy it takes a very hard toll on your body. But also, the anxiety is not going to go anywhere. It's going to morph and it's going to change, especially if you don't know how to manage it. And so you're not necessarily going to feel amazing. You're going to feel amazing and probably still anxious, right? You're going to feel excited and terrified, right? So when we decide how we're going to feel in the future, or we're trying to like nostalgically, like through rose-colored glasses, decipher that we felt so much better when, you're doing yourself a terrible injustice in how you're feeling right now. And I want to make it clear that this is neither good nor bad. And I'm not trying to like say anyone is wrong for doing this or shame anyone. I have been, if there is a guilty version of this, which there's no guilt, you haven't done anything wrong, but I would be 100% guilty, right? I would be serving multiple life sentences for this level of guilt, because this is how I've lived so much of my life. And it's also how I see a lot of my IVFers, a lot of my clients who come to me. It is also how I see them seeing the world and their experience of it, right? All that to say, I'm trying to empower you. All of the feelings that you have felt before infertility and IVF, or how you think you will get to feel once you have what you really want, really it is, and it was, what and how you think about yourself and what and how you think about your life. Right? Maybe you permitted yourself to believe things about yourself because you had not yet experienced the type of trauma or grief that you are now experiencing. And so maybe you didn't have to practice believing wonderful things about yourself in your life, that maybe you're having to practice a little bit more in the face of this type of adversity. If you've listened to me for any period of time, you know that I believe that our thinking creates our feelings and our feelings drive our actions. So our feelings are always caused by what we are thinking, which is why we can all have different emotional experiences as like going through a very similar experience, right? My experience of IVF is probably, even if we have similar experiences, right? Maybe you've gone through 2 rounds of IVF, maybe you've had 3 transfers and 2 worked and 1 didn't. We're still going to have different experiences of a very similar thing, because we're thinking different things, right? We have different experiences, we have different biases, we have different automatic thought processes. All of that's going to be different, even though we're going through, let's say, a similar experience. But all of those things, right? They're just manifestations of what is happening in your brain. So maybe before IVF and infertility, you felt like you had more confidence, more belief in yourself, and now you second guess all of your decisions. That's not necessarily a byproduct of IVF and infertility. It's just that IVF and infertility gave you more opportunities to question and second guess and feel like you have a lack of confidence. In times of stress, we tend to revert back to our habits, which can include things that we do or don't do, which I think how most people think of habits, but it also includes how we think or don't think. So before you hit this infertility and IVF wall, maybe you had an easier time believing that you were capable and strong and resilient. It doesn't mean that you are less adept at those things right now. It just means that that what you're facing makes it harder for you to believe that about yourself. There's also things like socialization and things like that that really do contribute to how you think about yourself, right? So women by and large are socialized to believe that there's always something fundamentally wrong with us. Like we have to, our worthiness is not inherent. We have to earn it. And so that those things also come into play. But by and large, how we think about ourselves, how we think about our lives really do create our emotional experience of it. Maybe right now it's easier to, when you think about the past or when you plan for the future, how you're going to feel or how you did feel, maybe that makes the present more tolerable, right? I don't want to take that away from you. Maybe by imagining what your life could look like in the future, it allows you to tolerate the present. That's okay, right? I just want you to do that from an intentional place, right? If thinking about how warm and squishy and amazing and wonderful it is going to be holding your babies in your arms, if that is getting you through, absolutely. You are not challenging fate. You are not setting yourself up for failure. You're actually allowing yourself to experience those warm, just wonderful emotions that are normal and natural. You're just getting to experience that a little bit right now. And that's wonderful. That's perfectly fine. What I want you to do is do that within context, right? It's not always going to be exactly like this, right? My future expectations might not be exactly like this. And so I just want to keep those realistic. Or maybe my past wasn't exactly the most beautiful experience of a confidence and radiance that I've ever experienced, that I've ever had in my entire life. So we're just wanting to keep it realistic and grounded when we do kind of inevitably think about our past selves and how maybe footloose and fancy free we were, and also how we're going to feel in the future. And I want you to own those things in the most empowering way possible. Because if you can own what you have created in the past, whether you perceive it as positive or negative, then you will start to see what I see and what I believe, which is that you have so much more power within you and within your life than maybe it feels like while you're in the throes of IVF. A lot of times we really feel very powerless in IVF. Like we are just constantly at the whim of doctor's appointments, tests, procedures, outcomes, and our own thoughts. We're kind of at the mercy of everything else, which is not true, right? We don't have any control over the outcome. We have all the control in the world over how we interact with our community, with ourself, our participation within the IVF process. Those are the things that we have control over, right? So as long as you attribute your fulfillment, how you feel with past or future circumstances, you're always going to be giving someone else credit for those things that you never get to take credit for yourself, for how wonderful and how amazing and how deserved you are of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of love, of kindness, of good things to happen to you. And again, we don't need to believe that our life was perfect or terrible before IVF, right? We can believe it was wonderful because it was always you. You were always the one creating that, right? In those moments, in those times that you look back and reflect and how, oh gosh, I really didn't have a care in the world. Of course you didn't. Maybe you were considerably younger and maybe you didn't have the type of responsibilities that you have now. But that doesn't mean that that wasn't you creating that reality. Last week, we talked about perception versus perspective, and your perception still matters, right? And so we can believe these wonderful things about you and your life right now, even in the midst of infertility and IVF, right? We can kind of compartmentalize those things. You are always the most constant presence in your own life. You are always the one who gets to decide what that looks like. How you treat yourself and how you talk to yourself will always be your guiding light for how you feel about yourself in your life. So notice when your brain wants to tell you that you didn't create what you once had, right? Oh no, that was the job that I had. That was the relationship that I was in, right? No, it was always you. Maybe you're trying to tell yourself in the future that whatever's going to happen, that will create yourself and your life and your perception of those things. Notice when your brain wants to give credit to something that is completely outside of you for something that you are experiencing inside of you. And I want you to get really curious. What if I took credit for my part in that? Right? What if I took accountability for my role in, for me, not really getting to experience my life for 18 months in those early days of my infertility journey, right? What I want you to do is just give yourself a little bit of love and like, yeah, you know what? I did do that. Damn it. I put myself in that place. I did the work of that relationship. You have gone through unfathomable experiences for most people going through infertility and IVF. Most people never understand what this experience is like, right? You did all of those based on how you're thinking and what made you feel good. So even though you probably didn't even know you were doing it, you did that. You found joy in these small, beautiful moments. You planned for your future, unlike I did, by deciding to go on that trip, by telling yourself, you know what, I am going to do this and I'm just going to make IVF work within my schedule, not trying to bend my schedule entirely around IVF. It is always up to you. It is always your choice. My advocacy is around just don't let that be your default, like it was for mine. It wasn't even a question that I could have it any other way. And I just want to introduce you to the idea that it is possible. It can be done another way. If you did it then, you can do it now. And you can do that in the future. It is always you. If you genuinely loved your life before you encountered IVF and infertility, it wasn't because of something outside of you. It was because of what you believed about yourself and your life and your future and the things that you did get. And from that place of belief, you are so much more powerful and deserving than you know. Please stop giving credit, whether it's positive credit or negative credit, to things outside of you. All I want you to know is that you deserve kindness and compassion and fulfilling relationships and happiness. You deserve all of those things because you're you. If for no other reason, because you're you. And even if we can approach our life from this place of, I deserve love, kindness, and compassion, it doesn't mean that you're going to walk around without goals or desire personal improvement or family or anything like that. I know that that's how a lot of people think, right? I have to be super hard on myself to achieve this or get this. That's not true, right? It doesn't mean you don't work hard. It doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that you're going to do all of those things without being an asshole to yourself. And that's the part that I want you to get to, that you deserve to feel good in your head, in your body, by how you talk to yourself. You deserve all of the gratitude and the kindness and all of the warm, squishy, wonderful feelings. You deserve that now, just like you deserved it in the past and you deserve it in the future. And it all starts with you. It all starts with that conversation. The most important conversation you ever have is the one you have with yourself. And that's what I want you to focus on. And that's what I want you to remember. You get to decide, no matter what, how you want to talk to yourself, how you want to think about yourself, whatever. I just want you to do that from a very intentional place. Okay? All right. Relatively short and sweet. I always say it's going to be short and then I keep talking. But I hope this helps you. I hope you see yourself as powerful and as wonderful and as amazing as I see you. And that it doesn't have anything to do with anything outside of you. It's always you. Always you. All right. That is what I have for you today. Take care, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.